The book concerning the tincture of the philosophers. Written against those sophists born since the deluge, in the age of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God. By Paracelsus Theophrastus Bombast, of Hohenheim. Philosopher of the Monarchia, Prince of Spagyrists, Chief Astronomer, Surpassing Physician, and Trismegistus of Mechanical Arcana. Preface. Since you, O Sophist, everywhere abuse me with such fatuous and mendacious words, on the ground that being sprung from rude Helvetia I can understand and know nothing, and also because being a duly qualified physician I still wander from one district to another, therefore I have proposed by means of this treatise to disclose to the ignorant and inexperienced, what good arts existed in the first age, what my art avails against you and yours against me, what should be thought of each, and how my posterity in this age of grace will imitate me. Look at Hermes, Archelaus, and others in the first age, see what Spagyrists and what philosophers then existed. By this they testify that their enemies, who are your patrons, O Sophist, at the present time are but mere empty forms and idols. Although this would not be attested by those who are falsely considered your authentic fathers and saints, yet the ancient emerald table shews more art and experience in philosophy, alchemy, magic, and the like, than could ever be taught by you and your crowd of followers. If you do not yet understand, from the aforesaid facts, what and how great treasures these are, tell me why no prince or king was ever able to subdue the Egyptians. Then tell me why the Emperor Diocletian ordered all the Spagyric books to be burnt, so far as he could lay his hands upon them. Unless the contents of those books had been known, they would have been obliged to bear still his intolerable yoke, a yoke, O Sophist, which shall one day be put upon the neck of yourself and your colleagues. From the middle of this age the monarchy of all the arts has been at length derived and conferred on me, Theophrastus Paracelsus, Prince of Philosophy and of Medicine. For this purpose I have been chosen by God to extinguish and blot out all the fantasies of elaborate and false works, of delusive and presumptuous words, be they the words of Aristotle, Galen, Avicenna, Mesva, or the dogmas of any among their followers. My theory, proceeding as it does from the light of nature, can never, through its consistency, pass away or be changed, but in the 58th year after its millennium and a half it will then begin to flourish. The practice at the same time following upon the theory will be proved by wonderful and incredible signs, so as to be open to mechanics and common people, and they will thoroughly understand how firm and immovable is that Paracelsic art against the triflings of the sophists, though meanwhile that sophistical science has to have its ineptitude propped up and fortified by papal and imperial privileges. In that I am esteemed by you a mendicant and vagabond sophist, the Danube and the Rhine will answer that accusation, though I hold my tongue. Those calumnies of yours falsely devised against me have often displeased many courts and princes, many imperial cities, the knightly order, and the nobility. I have a treasure hidden in a certain city called Wine Den, belonging to Forum Julii, at an inn, a treasure which neither you, Leo of Rome, nor you, Charles the German, could purchase with all your substance. Although the signed star has been applied to the arcanum of your names, it is known to none but the sons of the divine Spagyric art. So then, you wormy and lousy sophist, since you deem the monarch of arcana a mere ignorant, fatuous, and prodigal quack, now, in this mid-age, I determine in my present treatise to disclose the honorable course of procedure in these matters, the virtues and preparation of the celebrated tincture of the philosophers for the use and honor of all who love the truth, and in order that all who despise the true arts may be reduced to poverty. By this arcanum the last age shall be illuminated clearly and compensated for all its losses by the gift of grace and the reward of the Spirit of truth, so that since the beginning of the world no similar germination of the intelligence and of wisdom shall ever have been heard of. In the meantime, vice will not be able to suppress the good, nor will the resources of those vicious persons, many though they be, cause any loss to the upright. The book concerning the tincture of the philosophers. Chapter 1. I, Philippus Theophrastus Paracelsus Bombast, say that, by divine grace, many ways have been sought to the tincture of the philosophers, which finally all came to the same scope and end. Hermes Trismegistus, the Egyptian, approached this task in his own method. Orus, the Greek, observed the same process. Halley, the Arabian, remained firm in his order. But Albertus Magnus, the German, followed also a lengthy process. Each one of these advanced in proportion to his own method. Nevertheless, they all arrive at one and the same end, at a long life, so much desired by the philosophers, and also at an honorable sustenance and means of preserving that life in this valley of misery. Now at this time, I, Theophrastus Paracelsus Bombast, monarch of the Arcana, am endowed by God with special gifts for this end, that every searcher after this supreme philosophic work may be forced to imitate and to follow me, be he Italian, Pole, Gaul, German, or whatsoever or whosoever he be. Come hither after me, all you philosophers, astronomers, and spagyrists, of however lofty a name ye may be. I will show and open to you, alchemists and doctors, who are exalted by me with the most consummate labors, this corporeal regeneration. I will teach you the tincture, the arcanum, the quintessence, wherein lie hid the foundations of all mysteries and of all works. For every person may and ought to believe in another only in those matters, which he has tried by fire. If any one shall have brought forward anything contrary to this method of experimentation in the spagyric art or in medicine, there is no reason for your belief in him, since, experimentally, through the agency of fire, the true is separated from the false. The light of nature indeed is created in this way, that by means thereof the proof or trial of everything may appear, but only to those who walk in this light. With this light we will teach, by the very best methods of demonstration, that all those who before me have approached this so difficult province with their own fancies and acute speculations have, to their own loss, incurred the danger of their foolishness. On which account, from my standpoint, many rustics have been ennobled, but, on the other hand, through the speculative and opinionative art of these many nobles have been changed into clowns, and since they carried golden mountains in their head before they had put their hand to the fire. First of all, then, there must be learnt, digestions, distillations, sublimations, reverberations, extractions, solutions, coagulations, fermentations, fixations, and every instrument which is requisite for this work must be mastered by experience, such as glass vessels, cucurbits, circulators, vessels of Hermes, earthen vessels, baths, blast furnaces, reverberatories, and instruments of like kind, also marble, coals, and tongs. Thus at length you will be able to profit in alchemy and in medicine. But so long as, relying on fancy and opinion, you cleave to your fictitious books, you are fitted and predestinated for no one of these things. Chapter 2. Concerning the definition of the subject and matter of the tincture of the philosophers. Before I come, then, to the process of the tincture, it is needful that I open to you the subject thereof, for, up to the present time, this has always been kept in a specially occult way by the lovers of truth. So, then, the matter of the tincture, when you understand me in a spagyrical sense, is a certain thing which, by the art of Vulcan, passes out of three essences into one essence, or it may remain. But, that I may give it its proper name, according to the use of the ancients, though it is called by many the Red Lion, still it is known by few. This, by the aid of nature and the skill of the artist himself, can be transmuted into a white eagle, so that out of one two are produced, and beyond this the brightness of gold does not shine so much for the spagyirist as do these two when kept in one. Now, if you do not understand the use of the Kabbalists and the old astronomers, you are not born by God for the spagyric art, or chosen by nature for the work of Vulcan, or created to open your mouth concerning alchemical arts. The matter of the tincture, then, is a very great pearl and a most precious treasure, and the noblest thing next to the manifestation of the Most High and the consideration of men which can exist upon earth. This is the lily of alchemy and of medicine, which the philosophers have so diligently sought after, but, through the failure of entire knowledge and complete preparation, they have not progressed to the perfect end thereof. By means of their investigations and experiments, only the initial stage of the tincture has been given to us, but the true foundation, which my colleagues must imitate, has been left for me, so that no one should mingle their shadows with our good intentions. I, by right after my long experiences, correct the spagyrists, and separate the false or the erroneous from the true, since, by long investigations, I have found reasons why I should be able justly to blame and to change diverse things. If, indeed, I had found out experiments of the ancients better than my own, should scarcely have taken up such great labors as, for the sake, the utility, and the advantage of all good alchemists, I have undergone willingly. Since, then, the subject of the tincture has been sufficiently declared, so that it scarcely could or ought to be exceeded in fidelity between two brothers, I approach its preparation, and after I have laid down the experiences of the first age, I wish to add my own inventions, to which at last the age of grace will by and by give its adhesion, whichever of the patriarchs, O Sophist, you, in the meantime, shall have made leaders. Chapter 3. Concerning the process of the ancients for the tincture of the philosophers, and a more compendious method by Paracelsus. The old Spagyrists putrefied lily for a philosophical month, and afterwards distilled therefrom the moist spirits, until at length the dry spirits were elevated. They again imbued the caput mortuum with moist spirits, and drew them off from it frequently by distillation until the dry spirits were all elevated. Then afterwards they united the moisture that had been drawn off and the dry spirits by means of a pelican, 3 or 4 times, until the whole lily remained dry at the bottom. Although early experience gave this process before fixation, none the less our ancestors often attained a perfect realization of their wish by this method. They would, however, have had a shorter way of arriving at the treasure of the red lion if they had learnt the agreement of astronomy with alchemy, as I have demonstrated it in the Apocalypse of Hermes. But since every day, as Christ says for the consolation of the faithful, has its own peculiar care, the labor for the Spagyrists before my times has been great and heavy, but this, by the help of the Holy Spirit flowing into us, will, in this last age, be lightened and made clear by my theory and practice, for all those who constantly persevere in their work with patience. For I have tested the properties of nature, its essences and conditions, and I know its conjunction and resolution, which are the highest and greatest gift for a philosopher, and never understood by the Sophists up to this time. When, therefore, the earliest age gave the first experience of the tincture, the Spagyrists made 2 things out of one simple. But when afterwards, in the Middle Age, this invention had died out, their successors by diligent scrutiny afterwards came upon the 2 names of this simple, and they named it with one word, namely, lily, as being the subject of the tincture. At length the imitators of nature putrefied this matter at its proper period just like the seed in the earth, since before this corruption nothing could be born from it, nor any arcanum break forth from it. Afterwards they drew off the moist spirits from the matter, until at length, by the violence of the fire, the dry were also equally sublimated, so that, in this way, just as the rustic does at the proper time of year, they might come to maturity as one after another is wont to ascend and to fall away. Lastly, as after the spring comes summer, they incorporated those fruits and dry spirits, and brought the magistery of the tincture to such a point that it came to the harvest, and laid itself out for ripening. Chapter 4. Concerning the process for the tincture of the philosophers, as it is shortened by Paracelsus. The ancient Spagyrists would not have required such lengthened labor and such wearisome repetition if they had learnt and practiced their work in my school. They would have obtained their wish just as well, with far less expense and labor. But at this time, when Theophrastus Paracelsus has arrived as the monarch of Arcana, the opportunity is at hand for finding out those things which were occult to all Spagyrists before me. Wherefore I say, take only the rose-colored blood from the lion and the gluten from the eagle. When you have mixed these, coagulate them according to the old process, and you will have the tincture of the philosophers, which an infinite number have sought after and very few have found. Whether you will or not, Sophist, this magistery is in nature itself, a wonderful thing of God above nature, and a most precious treasure in this valley of sorrows. If you look at it from without it seems a paltry thing to transmute another into something far more noble than it was before. But you must, nevertheless, allow this, and confess that it is a miracle produced by the Spagyrist, who by the art of his preparation corrupts a visible body which is externally vile, from which he excites another most noble and most precious essence. If you, in like manner, have learnt anything from the light of Aristotle, or from us, or from the rules of Serapio, come forth, and bring that knowledge experimentally to light. Preserve now the right of the schools, as becomes a lover of honor and a doctor. But if you know nothing and can do nothing, why do you despise me as though I were an irrational Helvetian cow, and inveigh against me as a wandering vagabond? Art is a second nature and a universe of its own, as experience witnesses, and demonstrates against you and your idols. Sometimes, therefore, the alchemist compounds certain simples, which he afterwards corrupts according to his need, and prepares thence another thing. For thus very often out of many things one is made, which affects more than nature of herself can do, as in Gastanum it is perfectly well known that Venus is produced from Saturn, in Corinthia, Luna out of Venus, and in Hungary, Sol out of Luna, to pass over in silence for the time being the transmutations of other natural objects, which were well known to the Magi, and more wonderfully than Ovid narrates in his Metamorphoses do they come to the light. That you may rightly understand me, seek your lion in the east, and your eagle in the south, for this our work which has been undertaken. You will not find better instruments than Hungary and Istria produce. But if you desire to lead from unity by duality and trinity with equal permutation of each, then you should direct your journey to the south, so in Cyprus shall you gain all your desire, concerning which we must not dilate more profusely than we have done at present. There are still many more of these arcana which exhibit transmutations, though they are known to few. And although these may by the Lord God be made manifest to anyone, still, the rumor of this art does not on that account at once break forth, but the Almighty gives therewith the understanding how to conceal these and other like arts even to the coming of Elias the artist, at which time there shall be nothing so occult that it shall not be revealed. You also see with your eyes, though there is no need to speak of these things, which may be taken derisively by some, that in the fire of sulfur is a great tincture for gems, which, indeed, exalts them to a loftier degree than nature by herself could do. But this gradation of metals and gems shall be omitted by me in this place, since I have written sufficiently about it in my Secret of Secrets, in my book on the vexations of alchemists, and abundantly elsewhere. As I have begun the process of our ancestors with the tincture of the philosophers, I will now perfectly conclude it. Chapter 5. Concerning the conclusion of the process of the ancients, made by Paracelsus. Lastly, the ancient Spagyrists having placed lily in a pelican and dried it, fixed it by means of a regulated increase of the fire, continued so long until from blackness, by permutation into all the colors, it became red as blood, and therewith assumed the condition of a salamander. Rightly, indeed, did they proceed with such labor, and in the same way it is right and becoming that everyone should proceed who seeks this pearl. It will be very difficult for me to make this clearer to you unless you shall have learnt in the school of the alchemists to observe the degrees of the fire, and also to change your vessels. For then at length you will see that soon after your lily shall have become heated in the philosophic egg, it becomes, with wonderful appearances, blacker than the crow, afterwards, in succession of time, whiter than the swan, and at last, passing through a yellow color, it turns out more red than any blood. Seek, seek, says the first Spagyrist, and you shall find, knock, and it shall be opened unto you. It would be impious and indecorous to put food in the mouth of a perfidious bird. Let her rather fly to it, even as I, with others before me, have been compelled to do. But follow true art, for this will lead you to its perfect knowledge. It is not possible that anything should here be set down more fully or more clearly than I have before spoken. Let your Pharisaical schools teach you what they will from their unstable and slippery foundation, which reaches not its end or its aim. When at length you shall have been taught as accurately as possible the alchemistic art, nothing in the nature of things shall then at length be so difficult which cannot be made manifest to you by the aid of this art. Nature, indeed, herself does not bring forth anything into the light which is advanced to its highest perfection, as can be seen in this place from the unity, or the union, of our duality. But a man ought by Spagyric preparations to lead it thither where it was ordained by nature. Let this have been sufficiently said by me, concerning the process of the ancients and my correction of the tincture of the philosophers, so far as relates to its preparation. Moreover, since now we have that treasure of the Egyptians in our hands, it remains that we turn it to our use, and this is offered to us by the Spagyric Magistery in two ways. According to the former mode it can be applied for the renewing of the body, according to the latter it is to be used for the transmutation of metals. Since, then, I, Theophrastus Paracelsus, have tried each of them in different ways, I am willing to put them forward and to describe them according to the signs indeed of the work, and as in experience and proof they appeared to me better and more perfectly. Chapter 6. Concerning the transmutation of metals by the perfection of medicine. If the tincture of the Philosophers is to be used for transmutation, a pound of it must be projected on 1,000 pounds of melted soul. Then, at length, will a medicine have been prepared for transmuting the leprous moisture of the metals. This work is a wonderful one in the light of nature, namely, that by the magistery, or the operation of the Spagyric, a metal, which formerly existed, should perish, and another be produced. This fact has rendered that same Aristotle, with his ill-founded philosophy, fatuous. For truly, when the rustics in Hungary cast iron at the proper season into a certain fountain, commonly called Zifferbrunnen, it is consumed into rust, and when this is liquefied with a blast fire, it soon exists as pure Venus, and never more returns to iron. Similarly, in the mountain commonly called Kuttenberg, they obtain a lixivium out of marcasites, in which iron is forthwith turned into Venus of a high grade, and more malleable than the other produced by nature. These things, and more like them, are known to simple men rather than to sophists, namely, those which turn one appearance of a metal into another. And these things, moreover, through the remarkable contempt of the ignorant, and partly, too, on account of the just envy of the artificers, remain almost hidden. But I myself, in Istria, have often brought Venus to more than 24, al 38 degrees, so that the color of soul could not mount higher, consisting of antimony or quartal, which Venus I used in all respects as other kinds. But though the old artists were very desirous of this arcanum, and sought it with the greatest diligence, nevertheless, very few could bring it by means of a perfect preparation to its end. For the transmutation of an inferior metal into a superior one brings with it many difficulties and obstacles, as the change of Jove into Luna, or Venus into Sol. Perhaps on account of their sins God willed that the magnalia of nature should be hidden from many men. For sometimes, when this tincture has been prepared by artists, and they were not able to reduce their projection to work its effects, it happened that, by their carelessness and bad guardianship, this was eaten up by fowls, whose feathers thereupon fell off, and, as I myself have seen, grew again. In this way transmutation, through its abuse from the carelessness of the artists, came into medicine and alchemy. For when they were unable to use the tincture according to their desire, they converted the same to the renovation of men, as shall be heard more at large in the following chapter. Chapter 7. Concerning the renovation of men. Some of the first and primitive philosophers of Egypt have lived by means of this tincture for 150 years. The life of many, too, has been extended and prolonged to several centuries, as is most clearly shown in different histories, though it seems scarcely credible to any one. For its power is so remarkable that it extends the life of the body beyond what is possible to its congenital nature, and keeps it so firmly in that condition that it lives on in safety from all infirmities. And although, indeed, the body at length comes to old age, nevertheless, it still appears as though it were established in its primal youth. So, then, the tincture of the Philosophers is a universal medicine, and consumes all diseases, by whatsoever name they are called, just like an invisible fire. The dose is very small, but its effect is most powerful. By means thereof I have cured the leprosy, venereal disease, dropsy, the falling sickness, colic, scab, and similar afflictions, also lupus, cancer, noli-me-tangere, fistulas, and the whole race of internal diseases, more surely than one could believe. Of this fact Germany, France, Italy, Poland, Bohemia, etc., will afford the most ample evidence. Now, Sophist, look at Theophrastus Paracelsus. How can your Apollo, Machaon, and Hippocrates stand against me? This is the Catholicum of the philosophers, by which all these philosophers have attained long life for resisting diseases, and they have attained this end entirely and most effectually, and so, according to their judgment, they named it the tincture of the philosophers. For what can there be in the whole range of medicine greater than such purgation of the body, by means whereof all superfluity is radically removed from it and transmuted? For when the seed is once made sound, all else is perfected. What avails the ill-founded purgation of the Sophists, since it removes nothing as it ought? This, therefore, is the most excellent foundation of a true physician, the regeneration of the nature, and the restoration of youth. After this, the new essence itself drives out all that is opposed to it. To effect this regeneration, the powers and virtues of the tincture of the philosophers were miraculously discovered, and up to this time have been used in secret and kept concealed by true Spagyrists. Here ends the book concerning the tincture of the philosophers.